I didn't think anyone would ever see me like this. Not my parents, not my teachers, and certainly not my best friend, Emma. And yet, there I was, crouched behind the living room curtains, listening to the soft hum of our quiet suburban street, my heart hammering like it might burst. The skirt felt strange against my legs, soft and foreign, swaying slightly every time I moved. The blouse I'd borrowed from my sister smelled faintly of her perfume, sweet, lingering, a scent that made my chest tighten. I'd thought no one would notice, that the night would belong to me alone, my little secret experiment that I'd been perfecting for weeks. I had always loved clothes. Not in the way most people might imagine, not as a joke or a dare. I loved the way they made me feel lighter somehow, freer, like I could be seen without fear. But fear had been my constant companion. The fear of judgment, of laughter, of rejection. And Emma was my safe place. She always had been. I never wanted her to see this side of me, because I wasn't sure I could explain it, or if she would understand. I inched toward the door, careful not to make a sound. The fabric of the skirt brushed my knees, delicate, almost comforting. I tugged lightly at the hem of the blouse, trying to smooth it down, and felt my hands tremble. This was it. Tonight, I would finally step outside, walk under the moonlight, and feel like myself, even if only for a few minutes. I hadn't counted on Emma. I hadn't even thought she'd be awake. But as soon as I pushed the door open, I froze. Her voice cut through the silence like a spotlight. Wait. Those clothes aren't yours. I spun around, my stomach dropping. Emma stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, eyebrows raised, eyes wide. There was no malice in her tone, just shock, curiosity, and maybe a little hurt. My throat went dry, and all the rehearsed explanations I had practiced in the mirror disappeared. I started, but the words stuck. Emma took a cautious step closer, tilting her head, studying me. "You've been sneaking into my closet?" she asked softly, almost whispering. I shook my head, feeling my face flush hotter than the streetlights outside. "No. I didn't mean to. I wanted to try, just for a little while," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Her silence was deafening. I could hear the blood pounding in my ears. Every heartbeat seemed to echo the shame, the fear, the hope that maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't laugh. Instead, Emma did something I didn't expect. She smiled, small, cautious, but genuine. "I get it," she said. "I think I get why." I blinked at her, disbelief mixing with panic. You do?" She nodded, stepping closer, her eyes never leaving mine. "I might not wear skirts or blouses, but I know what it's like to feel trapped in someone else's idea of who you should be. To crave something that feels like freedom." The words hit me like a wave. I wanted to cry, to scream, to disappear into the floor, but instead, I just stood there, trembling. "I've been so scared," I whispered. "Scared you'd think I was weird, or broken." Emma reached out and touched my arm lightly. "You're not broken," she said. "You're brave. And maybe I'm lucky to be your friend, because you're trusting me with this." I felt the tension in my shoulders start to ease, just slightly. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt seen not as a secret, not as a mistake, but as a person. "Do you want to come out?" she asked quietly, nodding toward the street. "Walk with me. I promise, nobody's judging." I hesitated. The night air felt cool against my skin, the wind tugging gently at the skirt. My heart was still racing, but the fear that had held me captive began to dissolve. I nodded. We stepped outside together, side by side. The street was quiet, moonlight pooling over the pavement like silver paint. I could feel Emma's presence, steady, grounding, a silent reassurance that I wasn't alone. For the first time, I allowed myself to move like I belonged in this skin, in this moment, in this self I'd been hiding from the world. "You know," Emma said after a while, her voice playful but tender, "I think that blouse looks amazing on you." "Really?" I laughed, nervously, feeling the knot in my chest loosen. "Thanks. I think I feel amazing too. Weird, but amazing." She nudged me gently with her shoulder. "You're allowed to feel amazing. Don't let anyone ever make you think otherwise." The rest of the night passed in a blur of laughter, soft confessions, and the quiet magic of being fully, unapologetically yourself. We talked about everything: school, parents, the pressure to fit into boxes, and for the first time, I felt like I could breathe. Like I wasn't performing a role to meet someone else's expectations. When we finally returned home, I was careful to put the clothes back where I had found them, but the feeling had changed. No longer were they a secret or a trap, they were a reminder. A reminder that courage isn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes, it's just stepping outside, letting yourself be seen, and trusting that the people who matter will still stand by you. Emma gave me one last smile before heading upstairs. "You know," she said, "I'll keep your secret. But maybe, next time, you can show me some of those outfits before midnight." I laughed softly, the sound lighter than I'd expected. "Deal," I said. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the moment she saw me, the raw, unfiltered version of myself. The fear had been intense, but the relief, the acceptance, the warmth of being truly understood, had been worth it all. I realized then that transformation isn't just about what you wear. It's about courage, authenticity, and the people who see you, really see you, and still stay. And maybe, just maybe, that's the kind of freedom worth sneaking out for. The days after that night were different. Everything felt sharper. Somehow, the way sunlight spilled across the kitchen table, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant laughter of kids playing in the street. I kept replaying Emma's words in my head, her calm, steady voice, her acceptance that had hit me like a lifeline. But reality wasn't as simple as stepping outside once and feeling free. There was school, social media, parents, and my own swirling doubts. I tried to act normal at first. Normal meant jeans, t-shirts, sneakers, clothes that didn't draw attention. But every time I looked in the mirror, I felt the ghost of that skirt and blouse pressing against my mind, reminding me of something real, something vital I'd been hiding. I wanted to be that person again, the one who felt whole, even if only for a few minutes. It started small. A scarf from my sister's room, a hat she didn't mind lending me, a cardigan tucked over my shoulders that smelled faintly of her shampoo. Each piece felt like a breadcrumb leading me toward myself. I would hide in my room, trying them on, twisting in the mirror, watching the reflection of someone I barely knew but someone I was starting to love. And yet, every time I thought of Emma, my chest clenched. What if she didn't understand? What if she regretted seeing me like that? One evening, a week after that first night, I heard a soft knock on my window. My heart leapt. I wasn't expecting anyone. I pulled back the curtain slowly, peeking through the glass, and there she was. Emma, in her pajamas, holding a small flashlight like a secret accomplice. "What are you doing?" I whispered, barely breathing. "Helping," she said simply, climbing up to the window like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You said you felt trapped in your closet the other night. I'm just here to make sure you don't get stuck again." I laughed nervously, the sound shaking. You really don't mind?" "Mind?" She grinned, leaning on the window frame. "Why would I? You're my friend. And friends help each other, even if it means sneaking around like teenagers in a movie." Her words wrapped around me, warm and reassuring. I pulled her in through the window, and we collapsed onto my bed, whispering and laughing like conspirators. That night, we tried on clothes together, not mine, not hers, but anything that felt right. Hats, scarves, jackets, even a pair of boots that were 2 sizes too big. Every outfit was a tiny rebellion, a soft declaration of identity, a proof that being yourself was more important than anyone else's expectations. But freedom isn't easy, not really. One afternoon, at school, the whispers started. I had worn a bright cardigan Emma had given me, and someone noticed. Just a casual comment at first, a joke that stung more than I expected. "Nice colors, newbie," someone muttered, and I felt a flicker of panic. My first instinct was to hide, to vanish, to fold myself back into the uniformity that had always protected me. But then I felt Emma's hand squeeze mine in the hallway, subtle but grounding. She didn't speak, she didn't scold, she just reminded me that I wasn't alone. And in that tiny gesture, I felt a surge of courage that made me straighten my back, lift my chin, and face the hallway without apology. The days became a delicate balance of risk and reward. I would borrow a scarf here, a jacket there, a blouse on weekends, each time feeling the same thrill and fear mingling in my chest. But something remarkable happened. With every step, every small choice, I felt more myself. And Emma was there for every moment, laughing with me, teasing me, sometimes just quietly holding the space so I could exist without judgment. One rainy Saturday, we decided to go out to the park, to test our courage. I had worn a long coat over a dress Emma had picked out, and she had her raincoat zipped tight, hair damp but smiling. The streets glistened under the drizzle, the reflections of streetlights bouncing in puddles. My heart raced as we walked, wondering if anyone would stare, wondering if I'd regret it. But nobody did. Not really. People passed, eyes briefly catching mine, and in that moment, I realized something profound. The fear of being judged was far worse than any actual judgment. And the joy of being seen, truly seen, far outweighed the risk. Emma and I sat on a wet bench, sharing an umbrella, talking about everything and nothing. "You know," she said, glancing at me with that familiar soft smile, "I think you're braver than anyone I know. You're not just trying on clothes, you're trying on yourself. And that takes courage." I blinked, the rain misting my lashes. I never thought I'd be able to say that about myself, I admitted. "But with you, maybe I can." Her hand found mine again, squeezing gently. "You don't have to do it alone," she said. "And you never will." The transformation wasn't about the clothes. It was about the nights spent whispering in my room, the hands held in hallways, the soft words of acceptance, the courage to walk through life as the person I knew I was inside. It was messy, imperfect, sometimes terrifying, but it was real. And it was mine. By the time summer rolled around, I had learned to navigate the world with small acts of bravery. A scarf in class, a cardigan at lunch, boots splashing through puddles, each step a declaration. I exist, I am valid, I am seen. And when Emma laughed beside me, rain dripping off her hair, I realized that the most transformative moments are the ones that happen quietly, in the company of someone who cares enough to stay. That night, back in my room, I carefully folded the blouse and skirt, placing them on my dresser. I didn't need to hide anymore, they weren't secrets. They were reminders. Reminders that courage isn't about changing the world, it's about changing your world, one small step at a time, surrounded by those who love you, understood you, and believed in you even when you didn't. And as I drifted to sleep, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because the clothes were mine, not because I had conquered fear, but because I had been seen, truly seen, and that, I realized, was the bravest transformation of all. The day came when hiding wasn't an option anymore. School was hosting its end-of-year talent show, and Emma had signed us up together, half as a joke, half as a challenge. "Let's show the world a little bit of who we are," she said, eyes sparkling. I laughed nervously at the thought. Me? On stage? In clothes that felt like me? But something inside me, the part that had blossomed in whispered nights and quiet walks, knew I couldn't say no. The night of the show, I stood backstage, peering at the crowd, heart hammering like a drum. I had chosen an outfit I loved, a simple, flowing dress with a cardigan that Emma had helped me pick. I could feel the familiar flutter of fear mixed with excitement. Emma squeezed my hand, whispering, "Ready?" I nodded, taking a deep breath. When we stepped onto the stage, the lights bright and blinding, my first instinct was to shrink. But then I caught Emma's gaze, and the courage she had nurtured in me surged. I straightened my back, lifted my chin, and allowed myself to be seen. Every step across that stage was a declaration. Every movement, every small smile, was a proof that I could exist in my truth without fear. We performed a short skit, weaving humor and heartfelt moments, and the audience laughed, cheered, and clapped. At some point, I caught a glimpse of my classmates, some surprised, some smiling, and I realized they weren't judging me. They were witnessing me. And that was enough. More than enough. After the show, as we walked backstage, drenched in adrenaline and relief, Emma turned to me. "See? You didn't just survive. You shined." I laughed softly, tears pricking my eyes. "I couldn't have done it without you," I admitted. "Never doubt that," she said, looping her arm with mine. "Friends don't let friends hide who they are. Not ever." In the days that followed, something remarkable happened. The whispers at school faded, replaced with curiosity, support, and even admiration. I found myself being more confident, more authentic, and more open about who I was. The clothes were no longer just garments, they were symbols of courage, identity, and the journey I had taken to accept myself. One afternoon, as Emma and I sat on the park bench, sharing ice cream and laughing at inside jokes, I realized something fundamental. Transformation isn't about the world seeing you in a different outfit or persona. It's about you seeing yourself, loving yourself, and having the courage to step forward with someone who believes in you by your side. I thought about that first night, the fear, the trembling hands, the soft fabric brushing my skin. I thought about Emma's steady presence, her words, her unwavering support. And I knew that the most profound transformations happen quietly, in small moments of bravery and acceptance, not with grand gestures or dramatic reveals. I hugged Emma tightly, feeling the warmth and grounding of her friendship. "Thank you," I whispered. "For seeing me, really seeing me." She smiled, leaning her head against mine. "Always," she said. "That's what friends are for. And I hope you know, I'm proud of you. Every step of the way." That night, as I carefully hung the clothes back in my dresser, I realized I didn't need to hide anymore. Not the dress, not the cardigan, not the scarves, and certainly not myself. Each piece of clothing was a reminder not of shame, but of courage. Not of fear, but of freedom. Not of hiding, but of being fully, unapologetically, authentically me. And maybe that's the real lesson. Life isn't about avoiding fear or hiding our truths. It's about taking that first trembling step, finding someone who will stand beside you, and discovering the quiet, unshakable courage that has been inside you all along. I finally understood that transformation isn't just in clothes, it's in trust, in friendship, in vulnerability, and in the bravery to live your truth. And as I drifted to sleep that night, the moonlight spilling softly through my window, I felt whole, seen, and ready for whatever came next. Because being yourself, fully and fearlessly, is the most beautiful transformation of all.